The palace of House Valtor woke before the sun. Servants moved through the corridors and practiced silence, their soft-soled shoes whispering against marble floors worn smooth by centuries of obedience. Braziers were stoked, curtains were drawn back just enough to admit the pale gray light of morning. Somewhere far below, bells chimed the hour, their sound muffled by stone and distance. Princess Seline stood at the tall, arched window of her chambers, watching mist gather in the valleys beyond the palace walls. It clung to the mountains as though reluctant to leave, curling around the peaks and sinking into the lowlands like a held breath. She had been awake for hours. Her reflection hovered faintly in the glass, dark hair braided with precision, shoulders straight, posture immaculate. She looked every bit the heir to Arendor. Yet her hands were clenched so tightly at her sides that her nails bit into her palms. This was how her days began, composed, controlled, already exhausted. Breakfast was a formal affair, taken at the long oak table beneath banners depicting House Valtor's victories. King Roderick spoke of border patrols and grain shipments. Queen Elowen corrected a servant's placement of a cup without looking at him. Selene listened. She always listened. She nodded when required, she answered when addressed. She kept her voice even, her expression neutral. Years of training had taught her that emotion was a weakness best hidden behind courtesy. Prince Harlan arrived late, as he often did. He filled the room without apology, broad-shouldered, confident, his boots still dusty from the training yard. He bowed only shallowly to the king, brushed a kiss against Selene's knuckles that lingered half a heartbeat too long. "You look well this morning," he said, his smile practiced. Selene met his gaze and returned the smile she had perfected. It reached her lips, it never reached her eyes. Later, in the council chamber, the future was discussed as though Selene were not present. "The wedding should not be delayed further," Queen Elowen said, fingers steepled. "Drakenor grows restless." Harlan leaned back in his chair, relaxed. "My father agrees. The sooner the union is sealed, the sooner rumors die." Selene's gaze drifted to the tall windows, to the banners stirring faintly in the draft. She imagined herself folded into those symbols, another thread in a tapestry she had not chosen. "You will adjust," her father said later, when the others had gone. Not unkindly, not gently either. "You were born for this." Selene bowed her head. "Yes, father." What she did not say was that each mention of the wedding felt like another stone added to her chest, pressing the air from her lungs. Beyond the palace walls, beyond the guarded gates and stone bridges, the day began differently. Amara rose with the sun because she had to. Her cottage was small, its walls rough-hewn, its roof patched more than once. Morning light filtered through the single window, illuminating dust motes that drifted lazily in the air. The smell of dried herbs, sage, yarrow, bitterroot, hung from the rafters in careful bundles. Thomas coughed in his sleep. Amara crossed the room quietly, kneeling beside his pallet. She pressed a hand to his chest, counting breaths the way she always did, relief loosening her shoulders when the rhythm steadied. "Morning, Papa," she murmured, though his eyes remained closed. She stirred the embers in the hearth, coaxed them back to life, and set water to boil. Her movements were efficient, practiced, shaped by years of necessity rather than instruction. There were no banners here, no councils, only time measured in breaths and small mercies. Amara spent the morning as she always did, washing linens in the stream, hanging them over low branches to dry, grinding herbs with a mortar worn smooth by use. When Thomas woke, she helped him sit, fed him thin broth spoon by spoon. She read aloud from a book missing its cover, her voice steady even when his attention wandered. This was love without ceremony. No vows were spoken, no witnesses stood by, yet every act carried intention. The way she adjusted his blanket, the patience in her silence when he grew irritable, the gentleness with which she corrected him when he forgot her name. Outside, the world went on. Inside, it narrowed to the space between breaths. The market square bloomed by midday. Stalls crowded together beneath striped awnings. The air buzzed with voices, vendors calling prices, children darting between legs, the clang of metal and the lowing of livestock. Scents overlapped: baked bread, sharp spices, crushed herbs. Amara set out her basket of wild berries near the well. They were not plentiful, but they were fresh, and that was often enough. She had nearly sold half when the crowd shifted abruptly. A horse snorted, stamping. The sound cut through the noise, sharp and sudden. Amara turned just in time to see a cloaked rider struggling to steady the animal, its hooves skidding dangerously close to her basket. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Easy," Amara said softly, placing a firm hand against the horse's neck. The animal stilled, responding to tone more than force. The rider looked down at her. For a moment, neither spoke. The woman under the hood had striking eyes, green, unsettled, as though caught mid-thought. Her clothes were plain, but too well made. Her posture carried an instinctive authority she didn't seem to know about. "Are you hurt?" the woman asked, finally. Amara shook her head. "No harm done." She glanced at the spilled berries, then back up, offering a small, reflexive smile. It wasn't flirtation, it was courtesy, habit. "Thank you," the rider said, and meant it. Their gazes held a fraction longer than necessary. Something unnameable passed between them. Not a spark, not yet, just awareness. Then the crowd surged and the moment dissolved.
Seline rode away, unsettled, her thoughts drifting, despite herself, back to the woman at the stall, the steadiness in her voice, the calm in the chaos. Amara returned to her selling, but found her attention slipping, her eyes lifting now and then toward the road where the rider had disappeared. Neither spoke of it that evening. Neither understood why the memory lingered, yet something had shifted, quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a door not yet opened but no longer fully closed. Seline told herself she would not go back. The market encounter was nothing, an interruption, a moment of courtesy extended and received. She had met hundreds of people in disguise before. None had lingered like this. Yet 2 days later, during a lecture on border treaties, her mind drifted. She found herself recalling the steadiness of that voice, the way the horse had calmed, as if recognizing authority that required no crown. She pressed her quill harder against parchment, ink pooling slightly. That afternoon, she ordered her cloak prepared. The market was busier this time. Seline moved carefully through the crowd, heart quickening despite her attempt at indifference. She told herself she was only curious, curious whether the woman would be there at all. She was. Amara stood by the well again, hair braided more tightly today, sleeves rolled up against the warmth. She looked up as Seline approached, recognition flickering across her face before she schooled it into politeness. "You again," Amara said, not smiling yet. Seline surprised herself by smiling first. "My horse remembers you." "That makes one of us," Amara replied lightly. They spoke of small things, the weather, the berries, the price of grain. Seline bought more than she needed and did not mind when Amara noticed. When Seline left, Amara watched her go this time, long enough to feel foolish for doing so. Seline returned again the following week, and then again. Sometimes she bought berries, sometimes she only spoke, sometimes she lingered longer than necessary, as if searching for an excuse to remain. Amara did not ask her name. That was the unspoken rule between them. No questions that might break the fragile normalcy of these encounters. Instead, they talked around themselves, about the river flooding last spring, about old books and which stories were worth rereading, about what it meant to be useful. Seline found herself listening more than she spoke. Amara had a way of answering without ornament, each word placed carefully, as if time itself were a limited resource. One market day, Seline did not come. Amara told herself it did not matter. Customers came and went. The sun climbed and fell. Still, when the square emptied and the shadows lengthened, she felt the absence like a skipped step, something missing from the rhythm of the day. At the palace, Seline sat through fittings and meetings, her thoughts elsewhere. The seamstress spoke, Seline nodded. Her mother spoke, Seline answered. But her attention tugged insistently toward the road beyond the gates. That night, she dreamed of a river she had never named.